All right, so good evening once again, and thank you for joining me on your favorite basketball show, Off the Court. The name is Wenson Mavor, and today is quite an interesting evening because we are still talking basketball, irrespective of the fact that it is off season. And as you may be aware, the games are now long gone. The championship, the champions in both the men and the ladies categories were crowned. And right now, but of course, the conversation has to continue despite the fact that it is off season. And tonight we will be looking at something very interesting. And this is a topic that is of interest to a lot of people. We'll be reviewing the 2023 financial report or statement of financial position, if you like, from the Zambia Basketball Federation. And this is part one of this particular series. As I must mention from the onset that I will endeavor, and there is commitment actually from the office bearers from the Zambia Basketball Federation to come on the show and be able to interact with each and every one of us concerning the finances or the financial administration of the federation itself. So next week, be on the lookout as the treasurer will be on this platform to interact and talk to you. But of course, this evening, I'm not alone. I'm joined by veteran basketball administrator Otema Musukwa. The man who has been in the game deserves no further introduction, and he will be conversing with us on the financial statement and position of the federation. And for the very first time is my good friend of mine, and this is Jabulani Ryan Mulenga. The majority of you know him as Jabu. He is also here just to give us a fresh perspective with regards the game of basketball from administration and management perspective. He is the head coach of Mukuni Warriors based in Livingston. So tonight we will be predominantly looking at the financial statement from the federation, but of course talking all things basketball. As always indicated, this show, the purpose of the show is basically to just interact with you, exchange knowledge, and see to it that we can come up with means and ways of improving the administration of the game of basketball. And I'd like to appeal to each and every one of you to be very active in our comment section. Let us know what you think. If you had the opportunity to see the report, please, if you have some questions or clarifications or whatever issue that you may have or basketball, related, feel free to be able to interact with us in the comment section. I can already see a gentleman who is a regular on this platform, Mr. Ndenge Iliam, who's already here. So we do welcome you. And of course, to my guests, once again, allow me to just thank you for being here and extend my warmest welcome. So to just kickstart the conversation, last week we had the annual general meeting take place here in Lusaka hosted by the Zambia Basketball Federation, in which the affiliates came through, participated, and obviously quite a number of things were discussed there. And also, one of the key documents that was presented there, not the only document though, but one of the key documents that was presented there is a statement indicating the financial position of the federation. And there are some numbers that answer some of your questions and also speak to some of the things, that we should be able to look out for or to reflect on from the just ended season. So first of all, I'll begin with you, Jabu. I know it is your first time on the show, but equally, you're welcome, my brother. And what I'd just like to find out, you come from Southern Province, an interesting province, by the way, when it comes to basketball, okay, in Zambia at the moment. But first and foremost, I know Southern Province did not participate in the annual general meeting due to what is going on in that particular province. But I'd like to hear firsthand information from you. First of all, how does this feel coming from a basketball lover such as yourself, a head coach such as yourself, who feels that the people of Southern Province deserve representation and deserve to be accorded an opportunity to participate in the administration of basketball? So just unmute your microphone for me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Winston. I think my one and only comment is it's not painful for me alone. It's painful for all the players in the Southern Province. It's painful for all the coaches who are not able to showcase their skills. And basically, We have people practicing every day, day in, day out, in every single town in this province. But without a platform to showcase your skills, what are you really training for, or what are you practicing for? And this is a major issue that's come to my desk quite a few times. A lot of kids reaching out, a lot of coaches, and generally, I think it's just a sad state of affairs because we haven't been accorded the chance to compete. Every athlete, every sports lover wants to showcase their talent, and it's not a good look, really.
Okay. Let me now come to you, Otema. Obviously, the meat of our discussion this evening will be hinging on the financial statement availed by the Federation. And I'd like to get straight into you. First of all, what is your general comment? I don't know if you attended, or I mean, I must think you did not attend. But generally, based on the
Absolutely.
information reaching you, what is your, first of all, overview or comment on both the annual general meeting and the fact that Southern Province did not participate, and maybe other provinces also that did not participate? What is your general comment on the annual general meeting based on the information that you have stemming from there before we get to the numbers?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity, and good evening to everyone that's listening. And basically, we stretch out our hands to the presenter for this very important discussion. My first comment is that from the media reports that are coming through, trickling down, I think through Mr. Mwembe Kaona, I'm sure he's got a very special relationship with the administrators, the current administrators, because we are getting a lot of feedback from him. I'm sure he was there at the AGM. Now, let me get straight to the point. The annual general meeting that was held is the annual general meeting for the federations. Obviously, the provincial basketball associations also have their annual general meetings. The only difference with this annual general meeting is that it was held uh, prior to the provincial basketball associations holding their meetings. I think historically, there is a notice that is given to affiliates, or in this case, the provincial basketball associations, to be able to attend an annual general meeting. Naturally, that period is about 21 days, if I'm not mistaken, unless, of course, the amended ZBF constitution provided for a shorter time frame. And the reason why this is so is because it gives ample time for the provincial basketball associations to be able to find means to attend the AGM, as it were. Also of note is that the AGM was, if I'm not mistaken, held in Lusaka, which I think, going by the trends, the AGM has been mostly decided where it was going to be held, it, based on the previous AGM. So it should have been held maybe on the Copper Belt, or there in any other provincial uh, centers. But in some instances, the AGM can be held where the GS presides. So if that was the case, then this is what happened. Now, we are talking about the financial report that has come out. I've gone through it, and then I think I'll be able to make my comments as we go forward. But two things of note is the very composition of what is referred to as the ZBF board was a point that was quite clear to me. And if I go back to the constitution of the Zambia Basketball Association, I noted that there were noticeable absences as what constitutes the board. In the document itself, there is a reference to a number that creates the creation of the ZBF, which is basically by the registrar of societies. Okay, and obviously
Mhm.
that ZBA is affiliated to the National Sports Council. So I've just raised those preliminary issues for us to understand what sort of AGM was being held. It was not an elective AGM. It was not an emergency AGM. This is the annual general meeting. But the question that begs answers is whether the provincial basketball associations will actually have their AGMs. Naturally, or previously, the provincial basketball associations held their AGMs before the federation held its AGM.
Okay, so you raised something very interesting where we see a scenario where the federation has their AGM before the provincial associations. Now, I've heard people, express opinions. Before I come to you, Jabu, I've heard people express opinions, Otema, that it would have been ideal for the provincial associations, first of all, to have their AGM and then come up with consolidated positions with regards issues that can be presented to the annual general meeting with the federations. Your thought on that dynamic? Has it always been like this in the past? And if so, what has changed? What is the impact of this dynamic that we've seen this time around?
Okay, I think this is quite interesting because a news item in one of the dailies today indicated that as a result of certain provincial basket, if I'm not mistaken, it's the Midlands and I think Eastern Province, or is it Rapula, that the ZBF president uh, then, gave a grant to these provincial basketball associations for having attended the AGM. That this is almost like a gesture of recognizing the attendance and rewarding it. Now, this is really, really, really fundamentally important for basketball because it then raises the questions to whether the provincial basketball associations are actually recognized by the ZBF. And I'm going by the document that is circulating. I don't know what I've read, whether it's the actual document, but I noted that there were 11 members of the ZBF executive, but the absence of the provincial basketball association chairpersons is not part of that board. I don't know whether this is a departure or the constitution was amended again, but the reason why this question comes in with the question you have answered, you have asked, is that when we understand the foundation of what ZBF is in relation to the basketball provincial basketball association, then some of the questions that we are asking would be easily understood and answered. I think there is a bit of a disjoint there, and for me, I believe that if notice was served on the provincial basketball associations, and if there were any, naturally, when a member of a board or someone or an entity who's supposed to be part of a committee does not attend an AGM, their apologies extended. So, based on the newspaper item that was written by Mr. Mwembe Kaona, I take it that it was a noticeable point that provincial basketball associations didn't show up. Now, in my time, when you asked that question, I was general secretary, basically the chief executive of basketball, and we had the ZBA, which was an association, not a federation. So when we sent notices 21 days before, the federations, I think they attended in large numbers. Those were basically affiliates, clubs, and whatnot. They had representative two would be sent to attend the AGM, and those that made apologies made it presented their credentials, and if there were any apologies to be made, those apologies would be taken in by the executive, and then it to be noted in
And
the minutes. Yeah, so
Aha.
it was a long-winded answer because I had to go to the history and give you the current situation based on the
Mm.
legal document which people are calling the ZBF Constitution.
Okay, so I love the fact that, just for the sake of clarity, Otema, you've indicated that if there are any apologies, they must be minuted. It must indicate that the
Yes.
following people could not attend. So now, by the mere fact that we did not see representation on that list from the PBAs, let me ride on the question which I've put on the screen right now from Ephraim O'Neill Mutondo, who says that could this be a message that the PBAs are sending of boycotting this important annual general meeting?
My answer to that one is the chief executive of basketball is the general secretary. Within his report, these sentiments could be part of the narrative, part of the same report.
Mhm.
I read through his report, and there was absolutely no indication of why the attendance was dismal or negligent, as it were. But I
Mhm.
think if if it was the issue of notice in terms of the period that is generally given for associations, or I mean the provincial basketball associations or affiliates to
Mm.
attend such meetings was too short, then that is a matter of concern. Because if it is provided for in the constitution, then certainly that was supposed to be followed. I know in the past we have had instances where an AGM or an EGM were called and it was didn't follow the notice required under the constitution to hold such an AGM. So the question then we pose to the GS, who's the chief executive, is to answer whether the notice was given sufficient time, or maybe some of the provincial basketball associations were not recognized. Let me even then ask another question. The CBA, which is the Copperbelt Basketball Association, I remember, I think one of the colleagues that was there is Mr. Piri, who is basically was there. But I'm told that there was a change of administration where that executive somehow resigned, and there were a number of issues. The the
Mhm.
report that the GS has produced does not categorically clearly state that. So for me, that would have been an issue to say, even though there was this executive that was there, these were the issues. And then at what point was this dissolved? And, how was it dissolved? And, where are the procedures provided for this dissolution? So perhaps, maybe to answer that question, perhaps ZBF has got a number of questions that it has to answer, which it is not yet answered. And I believe that Mr. Roderick Ndlovu, who is the General Secretary, and Mr. Maziko Piri, who's the President of the ZBF, have got the answers to these questions. These are not rocket science questions. These are very straightforward questions. And probably we are discussing the financial position, but the administrative position marries together with the financial position.
Okay, well spoken, Mr. Otema. And I earlier indicated that next week we will endeavor to bring the relevant stakeholders to come through on the platform and be able to answer some of the questions that specifically only they can provide answers to. And I must mention that I did extend invitations to some relevant authorities to be able to come through on the show. And I can tell you that they did not reject my invitation or ignore, but due to certain commitments, they weren't able to make it tonight. But have given me commitments that they will be with me next week. And of course, I'm talking about the treasurer himself, the man that has all the answers to the questions that we may have. So please be on the lookout next week. But as we get to the conversation, Jabu, allow me to bring you on. Again, another article to Uncle Mwembe, who's doing a brilliant job informing the public, especially on those that may not have the opportunity to attend the annual general meeting itself. He is there circulating information, writing articles, and just informing us on some of the positives and activities that took place over the weekend. And one that is of significant interest, I believe, to both you and me, is the fact that a presidential directive was given to the General Secretary, or the Secretary General, Mr. Roderick Ndlovu, to be able to come through to Southern Province and address the concerns raised by the Livingston Basketball Association. I stand to be corrected. First of all, what are some of these concerns that the Livingston Basketball Association raised for those that are hearing about this for the first time? And how do you receive this news about the directive from the president for the federation to step in and look at your issues over in the South?
Thank you, Wendy. Well, this is a welcome move. First of all, the issues that were raised were that, just like Mr. Kaona mentioned in the article, we do have a leadership vacuum in the province. We haven't had any formal communication from our chairperson for nearly 2 years, 2 to 3 years, since the last elective AGM. It's been a case of elected and then disappeared. And if I can give a brief background of how this AGM occurred when our chairperson was elected, this happened. Of course, it was announced the very same 21 days, but we had a situation where nominations were not accepted for the AGM. Several people, myself and some other colleagues from Livingston, had applied for certain positions in this particular AGM, and we were told we were going to receive nominations via email. Okay, so those emails never came; they never showed up. And then the other thing is, this AGM was held in Monze. I believe Monze being the home of the previous SBA chairperson. This was also a bit unorthodox because the venue wasn't communicated, and you would assume a central location like Choma would have been more welcoming for people traveling from out of town. We've seen a situation where, I'm sure you know, Mazabuka Comets are now in the Midlands, or they've been there for a while. It all comes down to there being a serious lack of activity in our region. Choma was also a powerhouse in the region. They did not have any representation at the AGM. If I ask any of the coaches from Livingston or any of the coaches from Kalomo, none of them were aware of this very special AGM that was only attended by a select few individuals from the Southern Province. And the other issue is that our chairperson is not based in the province. Our chairperson is running this remotely from Lusaka. So that is not an ideal situation. You need to be able to interact with your people on the ground. And if you're not interacting with us physically, at least virtually, no effort has been made to plan, no effort has been made to give us a direction, a vision as to what the SBA is supposed to be and to do. And I think if there's anyone who has been communicated to as to what the structure of the SBA is, maybe they can come forward now and tell us. But as it stands at the moment, it's very much a one-man show. So without sounding like I'm politicking, that's a brief background of the situation we have here. And that's pretty much it, Wenson. Thank you.
Okay. So we will definitely get back on that, Jabu, because it's very, very important to obviously stress what is really happening countrywide. And that is one of the things that we try to do on this particular show, to give you a holistic picture of the game of basketball from an administrative point of view and also what is happening on the court. And Otema, now let me come to you. When we look at the report, okay, I've got something open right here. So obviously we can't discuss the entirety of the documents on this platform, but there will be certain areas that we can really look at and just be able to see. But there's an important question that Coup Masterpiece M. Muyaba has posed, which I put on the screen right now. And Muyaba wants to know, he says he just saw the budget and he just wanted clarity if these accounts were audited, if so, by who, and is there proof that was given that these financial statements or the financial position given is stemming from audited accounts? To your knowledge, Otema, were these numbers from the documents circulating audited? What is it that you gathered from your rich network?
Thank you very much for that question. And I think this is the most glaring question that is facing the ZBF right now. In 2022, there was a similar report, a financial report that was presented at the AGM. It was rejected, and I think the president at that time had indicated to the affiliates, if I recall, I followed the statements that followed, that there would be an audited, there would be audited accounts based on the financial year, meaning 2022, and then the affiliates or the provincial basketball associations would have this audited report. So then we are now in looking at the 2023 financial position, and this has repeated itself. Now, this is the most, if like for lack of a better word, the most pressing issue that the federation must address, because previously they did indicate quite firmly that the audited the accounts were not audited. And so then I think there was even a nominated auditor that was selected in the previous AGM. I think the provincial basketball associations could do justice and follow up with the name of the HB something, if I recall, that was then engaged. And I think the two officers that were then mandated to look at this was the GS and the treasurer. So I'm sure that when he comes through, he's going to explain that process that happened in 2022. But then we're coming to 2023. This is like 12 months later, and then we are receiving a report with, if I say, very minimal representation of the actual position. Is what is being presented again. So is this a trend then that maybe we should do away with audited accounts? Why are audited accounts important? I think from the next position will be then to answer why they are important. ZBA, I think even in the ZBF through when the former president, Mr. Shawi Fawaz, for the great job that he did, I recall that he was on record having rejected unaudited accounts. I mean, Mr. Fawaz went to the extent of actually paying from his own pocket for these accounts to be audited, and yet he was still receiving unaudited accounts. This is a previous administration. This is a new administration. So we're also looking at previous in his tenure. There were audited accounts that were presented before in an AGM. So I think the issue is, why are we having unaudited accounts? It's a very straightforward question that begs answers. 12 months, we couldn't do much work. Looking at the items presented in this basic report, what are the major items, national championship, and a few? Are those the most difficult things to audit? You know, so we need to be able to then ask the question. This question goes back to the executive that is led by Mr. Maziko Piri. Why are the books not audited? From the little information you said from the rich, I've asked a few persons that attended, and they indicated that the members or the council actually rejected this particular report. So this report was rejected by the members who attended. So this is, I think, what I have gathered from the comments that colleagues have shared with me.
So clearly, Otema, what you're saying is that the credibility of financial statements, or should I say, what adds credibility to a financial statement, has to do with audit. And for the fact that this is year 23 and we're not seeing audited statements, yet there was a promise. Going forward, what kind of picture does this reflect to the general people that are being led by the Zambia Basketball Federation executive? Because accountability demands that you open yourself to audit, that audit becomes priority. So, in your opinion, what kind of picture do you think this paints the current executive if they are failing just to bring about audited accounts and no explanation has been given as to why the accounts have not been audited, unless maybe it was provided in the report by this the general secretary, or maybe the competition secretary, or maybe the national technical coordinator? I've not had the chance to see that, but was there any reason given as to why these accounts have not been audited? And just how serious is this? Is this?
It's a very serious issue, and I think to downplay the seriousness of this issue, maybe I can bring back the basketball family to a time where ZBA, because of audit issues, was at some point removed from participating in international tournaments. We know that persons that hold office in the ZBF are generally referred to as public officers, and they are privy to handling public finances. So this is a very important submission, and this is not going against certain persons. Is now the trend where people feel when questions are asked as if we are attacking persons, and everybody's going to say, oh no, our term will come to an end, so you guys who want to take over because we don't get paid to do this thing. I find that to be nonsensical. The straightforward position should be a public person who has taken up office, whether voluntary or paid, should be able to be accountable to the persons he is leading or is providing directions to. It's a simple, straightforward issue. This is what basketball demands from us. Before we go to the defensive, let us look at the procedures. Now, if we are going to address the issue of unaudited books of accounts, let me give an example of why accounts are supposed to be audited. If, for instance, you undertake, let's say, I mean, this is hypothetical, so don't quote me on suggesting that I'm pointing a finger. You are one of the referees, and you are going to do 3-on-3 in Ghana, for instance, or whatever it is. Where are where is the imprest? Where are the receipts for the travels? Where, because we can then simply be supporting and budgeted for expenses where persons are supposed to be going buying sneakers, girlfriends' phones, and all those funny things. We know these things in the past. And then the idea of being in service to basketball is like a public service. So persons must be able to handle funds with care, not just giving a block figure. If you break down, let's say, for instance, the national championship, from the quarters, semis to the finals, look at how many weeks that went through. Surely, between that period, there should be an account that is succinctly addressing the cost implications, the financing, where it's coming from, the sponsorship issues. So these are not rocket science. I am also coming from a background way back in the 90s. I was trained as an accountant before. So these issues of audited accounts are a must for the ZBA for two reasons. Number one, it gives confidence to the persons that affiliate to the federation and the ones that are accredited. Number two, it gives confidence for any potential sponsor of the league to notice that you have these records in order. We are not raising alarm. It is just a general practice that when you present these accounts, we have to look at the bank statements and all those things. It's a simple requirement to hold offices that colleagues are holding at this point. There are administrations before that have been queried on those issues. My administration at one time was queried on the same issues, and we can go in a public space and then present these, because when you present a financial report for a federation, it's actually a public document. It's not a secret thing. So I think it's that is the point that we are raising when we start asking these questions. Why an audited account?
So Otema, you say it is a public document, But again, what I've seen is that somehow the federation will say do its part by giving it to the affiliates or the chairpersons of PBAs that attend these meetings. But the chairpersons of these PBAs do not circulate this information appropriately to the various constituencies. And how does the larger audience, for example, the people that are following this program right now in the comment section, have people asking about this report, and you rightly indicated it's a public document, but it's clear that there's a challenge to accessing these accounts. So how do we bridge this gap?
You see, this is where fundamentally I wrote an article. I wrote a number of articles prior to the EGM, the elective conference, and I raised a number of issues. The first issue I raised was a constitutional one. Remember, my preamble started on the point that the board that constitutes the ZBF has to have chairpersons of provincial basketball associations in the board. So it is quite apparent that if the chairpersons of the board are part of the ZBF, how is it possible that this information should come from the ZBF trickling down to the provincial basketball associations? I'm lost. Because if we are reading from the same ZBF constitution, when did ZBF remove the chairpersons of provincial basketball associations from the board? Because the basic outlay of the financial report indicates the members, and there are 11, and I can go down and mention who they are. And I noticed even for one that there was a colleague, a very dear friend of mine, the Sipo Nakaloa, is appearing as the head of whatever players union. Was the Sipo elected or appointed? So you see, some of these things have constitutional arrangements and administrative issues. This is why we are facing these seemingly small issues, but they're quite big. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's start from the beginning. You know, when I raised issues 8 years ago, in 2010, this is 2024, I raised issues of the same nature. In 2014, I raised issues. In 2021, I raised issues. In 2020, I have been raising these issues. If we want to deal with the issues of accountability, transparency, corporate governance, let us go to the Constitution. Let me give you an example. ZBF, if you read the report that is presented by the treasurer, is indicated that it is registered by the Societies Act, by the registrar. But have you noted that provincial basketball associations, when they present their AGM, they present it to their affiliates? These are the persons or the entities that they are beholden to. So the affiliates are the ones that must take the provincial basketball association to task on those finances. And naturally, those accounts must be audited. So it follows then that the mother body, which is ZBF, should also have accounts that are audited. So to suggest that the ZBF would then send the report to the provincial basketball association would be very erroneous, because the provincial basketball associations are part of ZBF in the board. So when were they removed, for instance? Because that's what I would like to understand now from the GS and the president. They have to explain that, oh, there was a decision whether to amend the constitution to remove the requirements to have the chairpersons of the provincial basketball associations as part of the ZBF. So naturally, for me, I would have thought, if you read the Societies Act, an association must be registered by the registrar of societies. So, are not provincial basketball associations part of a society? How do we treat it? Because they are accredited to ZBF. So these are the constitutional issues that we have allowed 2 terms, I mean 2 years into the administration of a very new administration to fester. This is what we should have been discussing in 2022 and implementing in 2023. This is the substantive issues that should have appeared in the GS's report, which is glaring and missing. So the issues of unaudited accounts has a very huge bearing on the corporate governance of ZBF. It must be able to reform, and we are coming in with in good faith. All the colleagues are our colleagues, and we support them. But we have to give them opinions. They have to listen.
Okay. Interesting, Otema. Now, let me just bring in Jabu quickly, just to be able to also react. Now, one of the things that came out, Jabu, which again I saw was interesting, and this Otema alluded to earlier on, that some PBAs were given 10,000 kwacha for attending. Okay. And Otema rightly so questioned whether the 10,000 was given as a grant for the sole purpose of basketball development or for attendance, but I'm meant to believe that it's for the development of the game of basketball. Now, first of all, I did not see anywhere indicating that the decision was arrived at based on a needs assessment. Okay, you look at all the active provincial basketball associations currently in Zambia, needs assessment is carried out, and then you determine to say, okay, by the time we're coming to the AGM, probably Lusaka needs 10 grand, or Tongwe Basketball Association needs, or EBA, for argument's sake, needs 10,000 kwacha. Jabu, I know you're coming from a place that is yearning for basketball, but you are not able to express yourself with regards basketball due to leadership issues. I want to find out what your take is on that. By the way, it's not a bad thing, and I'd like to put it on the record. Kudos to President Maziko for that gesture. Kudos, we would like them to continue, but I'd like to hear from you, first of all, on that.
All right, thank you, Ensign. First of all, I'd like to say I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. 10,000 kwacha is a good amount of money that could go a long way towards things like, renovations of basketball courts, maybe a simple kit for some deserving basketball teams or equipment, basically, for coaches. You could set up even a small academy for youth players. It's a good start. It's a good start for any association. However, I do feel like there are certain associations that would need that amount a bit more than, say, the NBA. I've got nothing against the NBA, but if we look at the makeup of the Midlands, it is basically the most developed association in the country. Luapula, yes, is coming up, and they definitely need that injection of capital. But then what is the criteria? If you're going to say attendance, let's look at a situation like, say, Copperbelt, where they had a revolution. Let's look at SBA, where we basically have no leadership. And let's look at EBA. I think I have some colleagues from the EBA. I think Fumbani, a colleague, Fumbani Chira, who plays in the EBA now, used to play for my team, Mukuni Warriors. And he mentions that they are mostly funded by individuals within the province. There is. It would be nice if this continues from the president, but maybe not from his pocket. I feel like the federation should be an income generating federation or association, in that you have gate takings, you have affiliation fees. How are the associations, or how are the clubs benefiting from all this money that is coming into the federation? So with that reward, going not to stray too far off topic, I'm not at all against the president reaching into his pocket and giving 10,000 kwacha to LBA, Luapula Basketball Association, and NBA. But it comes with, I'll just call a spade from a jealous point of view. The NBA gets 10,000 kwacha. I feel like the SBA could have really benefited from even half that amount, if I'm being honest. Our referees don't have uniforms. Our teams don't have basketballs. I think, maybe 6 finished basketballs that I have here. Our courts are in a deplorable state. If I may also point out, there has never been any ZBF official who has stepped foot in Southern Province since the AGM. It's quite strange. It's yeah. So basically, yeah, we're being honest. It's from a jealous point of view. I'm not happy that MBA has gotten 10,000. I feel like Luapula can maybe be in the same situation as my province, and yeah, we could stand to gain from those funds. So if you look in our direction, it's a good move that they're on their way to come and sort out our issues. I don't know what that entails. Are we calling for fresh elections? Are we putting a structure in place? Or are we basically saying, okay, we're coming over to just see what's happening in your region or in your province, and that's it? Then yeah, the other thing I would like to see is timelines, and maybe back to the topic of the 10 pins that were given to the two associations, is what are the targets? What do you hope to achieve? What are the deliverables from the funding? It can't just be for attending an AGM, because if I was also appointed to come and attend, I would have attended, provided the notice was on time. But you have a situation where you have a chairperson who communicates with you at the 24th hour. I won't lie to you, and Chimunya Mwanga, who is our chairperson, is a good friend of mine. But the night you had the interview with, I think that was the last interview you had just before the AGM, is when he reached out to me and told me, hey, would you like to attend this AGM with me basically tomorrow? And, I reached out to my colleagues in the Livingston Basketball Association and said, guys, this has been brought to the fore. Would you like to attend this AGM? I'm not able to make it. It's very short notice. Most of our people are working class, and you can't just stand up and start off for Lusaka. I do know on, say, there is a basketball coaches forum that exists. This information was posted by some of the officials from the federation, but I do feel like an official invitation is necessary. Let's write to each other in good time, inform each other of what is happening, and that's another one of the biggest issues I'm seeing from our federation. It's that information is considered to be top secret, almost like it's an intelligence agency. It doesn't make any sense. You have an AGM that is going to run and is going to talk about important issues, but then you only announce it to a select few. You're well aware of a situation in a province where there's no communication. I mean, reach out. If things were okay for the last 2 years, and tell you what, there are some people within the federation who don't know who the chairperson of the Southern Basketball Association is. Within the federation, is within the executive committee, actually. There are people who think Francis is still chairperson, and these questions have come up from time to time. I've seen it in the comment section. Someone is asking what happened to Spaba. Hey, there's a lot going on there. So just to circle back to this issue, it's very welcome. Thank you very much to the president, Mr. Mazikopiri, for providing this much needed funding to our sister, or is it brother associations. And I hope Beverly in Luapula does a good job. Beverly is originally from Southern Province. So I've seen her play. Good, she's gone into administration, and we hope for the best that side. I wish them the best. MBA, I feel like you guys will owe us a 10 pin for the free money you've gotten. So yeah, those are my comments on this particular one. Sorry to digress, just to touch on the minor issue that was brought up by Mr. Musukwa over audited accounts. I think in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2020, there was a 3x3 tour that was carried out in Livingston. I was part of the team that was tasked with organizing this, and we worked very well with Mr. Munatamba as well as Mr. Sankisha. I remember very well receiving some phone calls from, I think that was the then accountant for Mr. Shawi Fawaz, inquiring over how this money was spent. Believe it or not, that was very welcome for me because I provided receipts. I was able to WhatsApp all the receipts, just quickly capture them on my phone for whatever we had spent, any funding we had received on, and send them through. On this particular issue, I thought this was a very welcome move because, believe it or not, within our little association, there were people who came to me and started asking for what I would term as kickbacks, and it might be unprofessional
Were
for me
these,
to drop
Jabu,
names.
were these leaders?
Would it be what?
I'm saying the people that were coming to you asking for kickbacks, were these people actively serving in positions within the federation or association?
I think the most I can say is yes. I'm not going to name any names, but the answer is yes. And I was approached. I was actually with two other colleagues of mine. I will name one who really, really came through and helped out with organizing this. He wasn't part of the association, Sikuka Mkubuta, who wanted to be technical coordinator for the South at the time. I think he's now playing for Matero Warriors. So really, you were a huge help, Mr. Mkubuta. Thank you so much. We really miss you in the region. But he can attest to the fact that we were approached after the event talking about, hey, how's about a little something for the money that you've kept for yourself? And it was a very, very, very sad situation because not only did we exhaust all the funding that came from the federation, and I believe some from Mr. Shawi's pocket, but we also reached into our own pockets, our own personal pockets. And to some extent, that's something that's become unfathomable for some people, that you have such passion for the game that you can reach into your own pocket and provide additional funding to a program like this. But I mean, let me just quickly show you something. Wedson, if you allow me to present this, just give me a second. Is that clear? Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Let me see it being okay.
I mean, look at all those faces.
Okay,
yes. Look at all those smiling faces. People with medals. This was at the post office, right in the heart of Livingston. Okay. These hoops were brought in from storage. They used to belong to a man called Robert McCarran, and he left them here when he left the country. And this is what we used for 3x3. This was, just look at how happy we've got happy faces here, to be honest. And that's basically it. That's all we want to see from the faces of the people here, not only in Livingston.
But I mean, Jabu, if honestly you're saying we have the quality and caliber of leaders that on one end, here is somebody sacrificing their money from their pockets to develop and further the game of basketball in the country. And on the other end, the people tasked with the responsibility to implement initiatives that would get us to this goal are the ones that want to benefit unscrupulously. I mean, do you think that the game of basketball at all has a chance of developing in this country if this mindset is still prevalent among our leaders, or should I say among ourselves as stakeholders within the game of basketball?
Wenson, we can only look at ourselves. We can only look at ourselves and what our motives are. We can only look at ourselves and see the damage that we're doing to the sport. We can only look at ourselves and see the improvements that we're making to the sport. A brief history of Livingston Basketball Association is that it came up because there was no activity in the province. Plain and simple. No one wants splinter groups, And the reason why I welcome this move to come and look at the issues here. I understand Mr. Musukwa has some concerns over whether it may be constitutional or unconstitutional, but I think it's a start. It's a start just to look at the administration here. I brought up a point about reports in the coaches forum some time back, where I asked how often do PBAs submit reports, because I think my chairperson here has never submitted a report. Or the other issue could be that the federation has never asked for a report. So those are simple things we would like to see. You know, we are stakeholders and we want to see basketball develop. There's no youth league in the Southern Province. You're starting to see a gap between my younger players, myself, who is pretty much approaching retirement, and people who've left the region. We've produced quality players here. Mukuta Kachingwe, Livingston, born and raised. Livingston created on our basketball court, Wusiku. Where is he now? Napsa Hurricanes, is it not? Yeah? Does he not start for the club? He starts for the club. The talent is there. Cyrus from Bulldogs, also one of our products. You have, you can speak of Gerard from Suns. There are so many names you can mention. Musonda from Suns as well. There's so many names you can mention of products that have come from Southern Province. But now we are wallowing in misery, you know? And honestly, it comes to leadership itself. I personally am not looking for a position. I think my voice speaks louder when I'm in the opposition. So giving me a position would be a way to shut me up, in all honesty. And I just want accountability, you know, accountability. Okay. Because once you get that position, you're answerable to someone. You've looked at
indeed, Jabu, everything. Yeah. Sorry continue. You were saying something?
Yes, I think there's been a high-profile resignation from the federation this last year. I think it was 2023. Yeah. Reasons unbeknownst. It's you can only speculate as what the reasons were, but honestly, let's introspect and just see what we've done to the game of basketball and what we're doing to the game of basketball. Have you made any? Look at yourself and think: have you made any improvements? I think I can proudly look at myself and say, I think I've made some improvements. I think I've impacted some lives. And there are players out there who've impacted my life positively, simply by them practicing with me, being on my team. And honestly, these are kids that have changed my life, taking away from certain vices. You know, I could be in the club drinking, but no, I'm thinking tomorrow there's a practice session, or tomorrow we have a game. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Am I going to wake up properly, or am I going to be hungover? How am I going to coach? You know? There is a lot we can do as leaders, as mature people, and you know, it starts with you and me. Sorry for monologuing and ranting.
No, don't worry about it. You know, let me just the reason why we brought you here. Okay, so please go ahead, Otema. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for Mr. Jabu for raising quite a number of issues. Maybe looking at where we are right now, we must first of all begin from the point where we appreciate that leadership is a service. So if persons that have assumed leadership need to be supported, because I feel sometimes that there's a disjoint between leadership and service in terms of holding these offices, and any sort of like departure from what a leader is thinking is viewed as sort of like an attack. So the challenge we have with that, and I'm speaking from experience, is that you have splinters within the executive itself. I hope this is not the case with the ZBF, but if it is the case, it also requires the leadership, and naturally it's always the one who presides over basketball, the president. So if we are talking about let me go to what Jabu commented on when he spoke about the gesture of the 10,000 to certain basketball associations. Do we have a basketball development program? Number one. Number two, do we have a strategic plan? I spoke about this last time. So naturally, if you go to the AGM and then you look at your strategic plan, uh, you look at what support is ZBF giving to their affiliates other than a national championship. You see, this is where we are. I'm looking at the financial report for ZBF itself, and it's getting a grant from FIBA for attending FIBA Congress, and there's another grant. I think the total amount is about 73,000 kwacha. So if ZBF, by virtue of affiliating to FIBA, gets this type of support, what is ZBF giving by way of support to the associations? Now, this is a huge question to answer, because then the only thing that answers that question is programs. This is why a 10-year, 5-year, six, whatever program that they have. I keep hearing of these documents. But if there is also a disjoint between office bearers, and sometimes this happens in federations where you find a person of a media person is playing the role of a GS. You find the treasurer is playing the role of a technical coordinator. You find a youth program playing the position of a general secretary. Are the terms of reference for the office holders very clear and set in stone? Because part of the challenge is having office bearers perform their function effectively. And the confusion sometimes comes in when maybe, I mean, I'm not suggesting names, one of the leaders is performing all the functions. Like every day you meet at his office and he guides everybody on what to do. So there is no collective responsibility for the decisions made. This is primarily a leadership issue. So if this is what's happening in ZBF, there are ways to deal with it. There are many ways to deal with it. And we need an open forum. And AGM is one of those forums that gives a substantive position that council then guides the board. Because it's not always that you give directives. It's even the other way around. The council can guide you. This is why it's called council. So let us look at this question that the grant was given for attendance. Is this in line with your development program, with your strategic plan? So all these issues, we are not supposed to deal with the benevolence of leadership in supporting basketball. Basketball should be programmed. For instance, Jabu has actually given a number of issues. What we need is to look at the structures. There is no youth basketball program. You might have competent persons assuming office, but there is no support because there is no coherent approach to doing things. It is as if you are in a remote control on a dictatorship where someone just says, okay, no, this one is not going. So head of delegation and the manager team, these are things I have experienced as an administrator before. And these are perennial issues until they're nipped in the bud. When you have 11 persons, I'm sure there is a vote on decision making. It is not always that the president must dictate all things. The president must moot ideas, and the council or the board must advise. Is this happening in the ZBF? Because we might be not dealing with the elephant in the room, that it's the leadership that is causing this problem. We might go to the constitution and yet we have provisions that properly guide, and what we are seeing is breach of the constitution. But what are the sanctions? Let me ask this question. So if we are saying that there is a requirement to present a 2023, what could possibly be a reason for not presenting books of accounts in 2022 and 2023? You can cite financial concerns. I'm looking at some of the income receivable by ZBA. I think for the national championship, I saw 128,000 kwacha. I think somewhere there I saw some figures which didn't explain where that income is coming from. So if, for instance, you have picked an audit firm to come and come and audit your accounts, generally you do a procurement sort of like exercise. You look at the best audit firm that gives you a reasonable price to do that issue. So that's why it's important at AGMs to pick the firm that will audit accounts, and the council agrees with it. So if in 12 months you have not found a firm to audit your accounts, how can you possibly preside over the affairs of basketball 12 months later? These are the indications. How did others do it consecutively? And even the National Sports Council recognized that. So these questions are not an attack. We just need to be able to address these issues. Now, what do unaudited financial reports present? Possibility of fraud, possibility of misuse of funds, possibility of vested interest in certain reasons for why decisions are made that have got a financial consideration. So, there are many. I also want to go back to what Jabulani raised in the southern province. He raised an issue to say, for 2 years, there was no activity. There was nothing happening. Now, Mr. Wedson, you now ask the question. So in 2022, what was the report that was presented by the GS to explain that problem? In 2023, what is the report by the GS saying on that issue? Then you look at the National Technical Coordinator. What programs were there in 2023, in 2024? Then you look at the financial report. What is the financial report supporting in terms of programs in that area? So you are telling me that in 2 whole years, we have had nothing happen in the southern province? This is quite glaring. And it is something that does. Then you say, well, we are not going to give, we're going to give Eastern Province, because I see on the financial report, you have got an item between Chongwe and Chipata, and then maybe there you make connections, and those are the things that are happening. So then those are the ones that are getting. And because of Lusaka being MBA, and Copperbelt has got problems. So really, are we really doing a service to basketball?
Now, Otema,
that is the question that I'm asking.
Let me bring to your attention a question that I believe is also very important for all of us to be able to understand, or maybe tap into your opinion on this. Precious is asking which body or government department is mandated to regulate, that is, hold the Federation accountable, and what are the consequences of failing to audit public funds? Of the executive members, who is mandated to ensure an audit is conducted, and what are the consequences of failure to deliver on such an important executive function? Now, as you explore and weigh in on this, Otema, you talked about the Registrar of Societies. Now, I was also looking at the National Sports Council Act. In there, it is very categorical that one of the grounds for deregistration of the federation is basically acts that are considered to be prejudicial to the interest of the members, or acts that are considered to be repugnant to the prevailing laws of the country. Corporate governance, we know that corporate governance demand that their accounts are supposed to be audited. So maybe just help us understand the distinction. When we look at Zambia Basketball Federation, are we just looking at the Registrar of Societies, or we can also look at the Zambia, the Sports Council Act? Because I see Mr. Raphael Mulenga come through, officiate, the events by ZBF. Are we also regulated by the Sports Council Act?
Yes, actually, all federations in Zambia are registered or recognized by the National Sports Council Act. However, the way the National Sports Council Act couches the understanding of when a federation has not done what its affiliates expected to do, the provision provides that as long as what the federation has done is against its constitution and rules. So what the ZBF has as a constitution should provide for sanctions for non-audited accounts. Now, the question that I think a lot of people must have in their mind is it possible to provide financial accounts and not audited? Yes, it is possible. But the challenge that raises is the transparency and accountability levels are very low. So unless a leadership that is in this office right now is saying they their vision in their, because I'm looking at the strategic plan
So
and the
Otema,
vision for the
Otema,
ZBA. Yes,
Otema, let me just get you clearly on this one, on that very
yes.
important point that you've mentioned. So are we then in order to assume or assert that the treasurer is not offside to have presented a financial statement or a financial position that is not audited at the moment?
At the moment, is definitely not offside, unfortunately. However, there is ethics and a moral code, and obviously his professional conduct, because he's a professional accountant. These are things that are supposed to be handled in a way that is quite transparent and clear. This is why I'm very categorical in saying that we are here to support the executive, and not everything that we query is an attack. Imagine what we are doing is called an audit query, and audit queries are asked even from the very best well-meaning persons. If you watch the parliamentary public accounts, you go through and there are all these queries that are given. It's similar to this situation. So the council is the one that is supposed to accept. They can reject. As far as I'm aware, the council that met in the previous this AGM that ended indicated that they were not happy with this report that was presented by the ZBF. Now, it follows from the fact that the 2022 accounts were also not audited, and the president indicated that within 3 months, the books of account would have been audited for 2022. So what is now missing in the 2023, that we don't have a 2022 audited account and we don't have a 2023 audited account? So what, when we leave sports, or when we retire, or when we go into to heaven, or wherever we go, there is something. There's life after basketball. So we should walk with our heads held up high, not live innuendos. And sometimes it's the presentation that creates these problems. So, in all fairness to the treasurer, like everything is falling on him, I would be of the view that a proper explanation was made. If, for instance, he gives as one of his conditions was that there was not sufficient funds to pay the auditors, I mean, this should have come out in a report somewhere, or whatever it is. So then, is it possible that a federation cannot pay for an audit? Are we saying that audit is very expensive, or audit is too cheap? Whatever the case, there has to be a sort of like an explanation for why that has happened. I think it's good, and I must commend the treasurer for having been on the platform before, and he is quite an open person. We are asking these questions because we expect answers. I think from my view, the major challenge is that consecutively for two seasons, the annual reports that are presented are not audited. Why?
Okay, so in other words, as you rightly clarified and educated, that the treasurer is not offside, having presented a financial position that is not audited, but at the same time, that very action creates a situation where people start having suspicions of or questions bordering on transparency and accountability. But in your submission, Jabu, let me come to you. The Mr. Otema spoke about the issue of the national championship, okay, which apparently at the moment seems to be one of those important, attractive things that the federation is preparing. Now, what I'd like to get from you, Jabu, based on what Mr. Otema said, And now we get a little bit into the numbers. I'm not an accountant, but like I said, we will have the treasurer on this platform, and he will take us through all these things and provide the relevant clarifications. As indicated, this is just part one. Jabu, from the national championships, obviously, what I'm seeing here is 128,050 kwacha, to be specific, that was raised. However, if I look at this, it just says national championships. Okay, it doesn't specify where this money is coming from. It doesn't say, or rather, it doesn't break down to tell us from get takings, this is how much came in. From this particular source, this is how much came in. From the source, this is how much came in. I would like to get your point on this. Don't you think we were supposed to have a breakdown on this just to be able to understand? We saw a huge crowd come through to NASDAQ, and people would be interested to know, you know, like where did this 128,050 kwacha come through or come from?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm no accountant. I'm an ICT technician by profession. I actually prefer to deal with computers and not people, because I think it's much easier. When you give a computer an input, it will give you an output, either a 1 or a 0, a yes or a no. With regards this income that came in and the expenditure, yes, of course you expect a breakdown. There has to be some proper output that is given, because these are figures. It's not qualitative, it's quantitative, how you account for money. And if I can just take us back to the financial report and we look at something that's been very well presented, I think it's the Basketball for Good section. There's a clear distinction between the Basketball for Good report on the expenditure and the rest of the financial report. So if you look at this Basketball for Good, it's broken down into different towns. I'm seeing Chongwe, I'm seeing Chipata, and there's a breakdown of even amounts that were given to first aiders, transportation for coaches, accommodation, communication. I think this is very, if you presented this to me and you told me you spent $1 million, I would accept it. But then if you came to me and say you spent 100,000, but there's no breakdown like this, I'm going to have questions. I'm going to ask you, okay, so where did it go? What did you use it for? I understand their expenses, and this is all that is being asked for. Just give us a breakdown, a simple breakdown. I think this is basic accounting for anyone who is an accountant. So not to say that there is foul play, but there is no clear communication as to what was spent on. And these are public accounts. So if you have something as good as Basketball for Good here, of course, it's large chunks of money. You know, you have 13K being spent in Chongwe. You have a total of about 14K being spent in Chipata. Oh, forgive me if I'm wrong. I think that's 5,000. That's 5K coming to a grand total of 28. So yeah, the breakdown is there. Even if it's a big amount, you don't really doubt it too much because you know where the money is going. But then you have 120,000. That's just a block figure with no real breakdown. I think maybe this money should just be split between all the other associations and not just the NBA, if you know what I mean. So it's you need to provide some information. Any information would be. Any information.
I like the advocacy that Jabu has been very consistent with this evening of ensuring that everybody has a piece of a cake. But Otema, let me come to you on this particular line. You know, you have 128,000 kwacha, 128,050 kwacha, you know, raised, and then there's no breakdown. I'd like to understand. I mean, you have a professional, you have some knowledge of accounts, okay, and experience. Just tell us, is this a professional way of presenting figures? I mean, I'm a lay person, and if I'm reading this, obviously, I would like to know.
I'm sorry to really interject on this one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Musukwa. I apologize for this. But if you look at page 7, of the report. I know it hasn't been shared with everyone, and I don't know if it's okay for me to show this on the screen or present it onto the screen. If you look at other
You can
income,
show it for the benefit of those that may not have it to see, because this is the document that we have in circulation at the moment.
okay, I'm not sure how I can present this particular page, but I'll just narrate. Notes on the financial report on page 7, number 2 says other income. And if you look at the third source of income, of course, you have transfer fees amounting to a certain amount, but on the source of other income, you have HLB giving the Federation 10,000 kwacha. All right. HLB is an accounting firm, as far as I know. Why are we receiving money from HLB and then complaining about not having enough money for audited accounts? Because I think that's something that came up, that auditing is a cost, but HLB is here supporting the Federation. Why does HLB not then audit accounts instead of giving us 10,000 kwacha that we don't know where it's going to go? That's just something I wanted to point out. I submit, Winston.
Okay. Interesting submission there, Jabu. And I totally agree with you. So
That's
over
very,
to you,
very,
Otema.
very
Is this
Mhm.
yeah, over to you.
Okay. Firstly, the block figure that's given generally should have who are the sponsors. It should have the names of the sponsor. If it's Trade Kings or any of the other big sponsors, if it's individual persons, you should then provide a narrative that creates that sponsor, as it were. The block figure suggests that you got monies from where. Was there support? If you recall very well, is it 2022 where there was a pledge by then, whether it was the permanent secretary or the minister, I think somewhere there for national championships. I remember there was a lot of smoke and there. So is this is this money coming from government? Is this private entities? So if we are saying in our report that ZBA is not sponsored, and yet the national championship is sponsored by certain entities, then I think we need to change our thinking on what sponsorship is. But then again, it is coming to the same question. The report is very general. It has to produce lines that explain where the sponsorship is coming, how it was spent, for what activities it was, and then that's how you provide these issues. I remember in our time, Mr. Jackson Mafleka was then treasurer. He would account for even waters bought for referees and what. It was all done in the same report. So those are the levels of accountability that is provided. And generally, if you use an auditor, those line items will come up. So I think I'm in total agreement with Jabu for the observations, and I think generally, if every other basketball lover or someone who is into basketball looks at that, that would be a major question, and potentially we are going into the 2024 season. We must then present those accounts. So for me, the only way forward is for the president to call for these accounts for the 2023 to be audited, similar to what he did in 2022, which was not done anyway. So if in 2023 there was supposed to be an audit of the accounts, let it be done. So I think I'm expectant that the treasurer, when he comes next week, he'll be telling you that the accounts will be audited. They were just late and rushed to send that to the AGM, and they were not prepared.
So again, Otema, before I move on to Jabu, if I'm looking at, for example, I'm just trying to find where there's some travel. So you've got here, for example, where it says there's a trip, okay, Secretariat and Administration, NEC CBA trip, 10,000 kwacha. So again, I've got questions, okay? If there's a trip, not that I'm against the trip is okay, the trip is good, okay, but it just says NEC CBA trip, Secretariat and Administration. doesn't explain what the trip is about or the purpose of the trip, at least just to give me an idea. Like I said, I'm not an accountant, but obviously, as a stakeholder, I want these numbers to make sense to me. So, what if people just went to the Copper Belt?
In that vein,
Mm.
even in that vein, when you say when you present a budget line like that, you say NEC 10,000 kwacha, whatever it is, are we suggesting that the whole of NEC went there? Secondly, they rented a venue, they paid for the meals, they booked hotels, and they did all those things. Because I'm looking at that amount, and it should then a simple arithmetics would say, okay, let's say you're going to the Copper Belt. You are NEC, you are prudent, you are belonging to a federation, you are not a corporate high flying jet person, and you didn't fly to the Copper Belt. If in our times we'd even bus it, we'd get on a bus, go, how much is a bus? So you go there, broken down. So even if you took 10 NEC members, you are saying that the total budget was 1,000 kwacha for each person for the trip. Now, if you said you hired a vehicle to go there, because I'm assuming most of the NEC members are in Lusaka, except for Mr. Nyerenda and a few others, and the other guys from the PBAs. So they are there. So you are right. You are quite right. Persons that traveled or office bearers should be indicated there. Now, in my time, when we would go to the Copper Belt, we would have instances where I'll travel with Mr. Kambi Kambi, who was the president at that time, and then maybe at the invitation of the National Olympic Committee or any other federation, would travel there. They would provide us with transport and probably even book us there with housing. We indicated all those things. So they would maybe just give you out of pocket, which was at that time maybe a 75 kwacha or 85 kwacha, and that was what was there. So you need to justify these expenses, because this is
Okay.
funds that are not personal to holder funds, and this is why it is important to have proper narratives for these block figures that are being given.
Okay, so I think we are privileged and fortunate enough this evening to be joined by the treasurer himself, Mr. Balamani Mulemwa, and he's with us. He's just joined us this evening. I don't know if you're able to hear me, sir. Good evening. Are you there?
Has he unmuted his mic?
Oh,
Just remind him
unfortunately, his
to
microphone
unmute.
is not. Yeah, his microphone is not unmuted.
Hi,
So,
hi guys. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
yes, we
thought
can
so.
hear you loud and clear, sir. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure.
Sorry that we had to start without you. But anyway, what is important is you are here with us, and I believe we will try as much as we can probably to just catch up with you on what we are discussing. So this evening, unfortunately, we are looking, or fortunately, I must mention, we are looking at the statement that was presented, I believe, by your office at the annual general meeting, and a lot of issues have been raised. Predominant among them is the issue of auditing of the funds. And what we've learned here is that a directive was given from Mr. Otema here, that the direction was given by the president for the funds, for the accounts to be audited, but that has not been done, and we've seen a similar situation. So maybe we can start there with you as you come to clarify a number of things that we've highlighted and possibly are going to highlight. Why didn't we see the statements audited if they were not audited?
Thanks for that, team. And I guess this issue is burning, and obviously it's been fueled by lack of education, in my opinion, between the federation and its affiliates. Let me clarify my position with regards to audits around the accounts. And it's good that we have someone like Otema on the call, because we had uh, as per constitution, if we follow what the constitution is, we had we sent out a request, and this request was drafted by me and CC'd on behalf of the general secretary. So just give me a second. So we seem to be creating a toxic environment, and which is my reason for joining. I think I had highlighted my personal situation to the host of the show as to why maybe I wouldn't have joined today. But just confirm when you can see this on my screen, and I shouldn't be doing this. I'll probably be crucified by the general secretary, but just confirm that you can see my screen, and for everyone that's looking at my screen.
Okay, just loading at the moment. Okay, yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, and please be free to take screenshots of this screen, because I think this is bordering on my personal reputation. And I think individuals perpetrating this are attacking my personality as a human being. So I would rather just clear this out. And forgive me for being a bit emotional, because when things begin to touch the very essence of how you earn a living, yeah, it then raises a lot of questions. This is a letter drafted by myself on behalf of the general secretary. And please, as a presenter, just highlight what the letter says.
What is the date?
Okay,
just start with a date.
This is done on the 2nd of November.
Okay, so I'm looking at here, 2nd of November 2023, to the managing partner HLB Zambia, and then there's the
2022.
The address.
2022, boss.
Sorry, 2022. Thank you for the correction. So I'll go straight to the reference: request for pro bono audit services. With reference to the above subject matter, the Zambia Basketball Federation is an affiliate of the National Sports Council and is registered with the government of the Republic of Zambia under the Societies Act Cap 119. In a bid to enhance our corporate governance image, we wish to solicit your services as auditors of the Zambia Basketball Federation accounts for the period 2023 onwards on pro bono services. I will be more than willing to schedule a meeting with your office to discuss the formalities needed to actualize this request. On behalf of the Zambia Federation, yours faithfully, K. Roderick Ndlovu, and then, yeah.
Okay. So I think this answers the question as to whether we, as a federation, have taken the step to request for pro bono services. Yeah, those conversations have continued, and we wait for the response or the next steps towards acquiring such services as pro bono services for auditing our accounts. That is number one, and I think that should settle the dust whether ZBF has in any sense requested to have audited accounts. I will move to the next.
So maybe just a quick one on that one. Just a quick one. Maybe people and ourselves would love to know, why are we requesting for pro bono services? Isn't this something that we should be able to budget for, plan for? And maybe how much did HLB charge if we secured quotations for this particular service?
So I sit on an audit committee for my daughter's school, and I won't mention my daughter's school. I'm privileged to sit on that audit committee. I would tell you for a certain that this is my second year as a member of the audit committee for my daughter's school. We don't pay less than 150,000 kwacha for audit fees. That I'll tell you. We don't pay less than 150 kwacha for audit fees. 150,000 kwacha. Let me just correct that. We don't pay less than that. and that is for a school that has over 500 kids at that school. Okay, so 150,000 kwacha makes sense for them to pay. I want to, and I want you guys to be to look at things in their totality. When you look at the financial report that we provided, and I must mention that, and let me not go there, but when we look at the financial statement that we provided, there are two income streams, and let's just be honest about it. You see, let's not characterize or personalize these things to things that are not actually there, okay, or being perpetuated by two individuals or one individual who's not happy with certain decisions that didn't go their way and they want to point it. We have two income streams. We have a grant income stream and an other income stream, totaling to 241,000. Okay, I'm talking about a school that is earning income in excess of 1 million kwacha a month. We have earned in a financial year 241,000 kwacha. Should I pay 150,000 kwacha for auditing? Granted, auditing is relevant for financial governance. And the National Sports Council has actually provided, and this is why in these AGMs, people are ignorant of the fact that they have actually provided, a resolution was passed in the last board meeting when the National Sports Council was constituted, that if a national federation cannot be able to hire an auditor, these accounts can be passed to the accountant at the Ministry of Finance, at the Ministry of Sport, and these will pass as audited accounts. Again, people don't know that fact because federations have complained that audit fees are too expensive. Hence, we wanted to go a step further as Zambia Basketball Federation and say that we want pro bono services from a recognized audit firm such as HOB, because no one, I may be wrong, I may be corrected, but if we have 50 federations in this country as Zambia, maybe one federation is providing audited accounts, and that federation may be FAZ. Go around your tables, do your homework, and get back to me and come and prove me wrong. Through the National Sports Council, we can provide our statements, and they can pass as audited financials. And that is why, before an AGM is signed off, Otema, you've been GS, and you know this fact. You always have a representative from the National Sports Council. And anything that flags off is reported to the National Sports Council. I'm very disappointed to hear a sentiment that affiliates that attended the AGM rejected this report. If you are people of integrity, call the representatives of Midlands Basketball Association, call the representatives of the Coaches Association, call the representative of Luapula Basketball Association. Let them come and say that they rejected these accounts. Call the representatives of the National Executive Council of Zambia and let them come and say that they rejected these accounts and they objected that these figures were wrong. If they did object, it was not in any official forum. And anything that doesn't happen in an official forum is pure malice and nothing concrete. Because if I have a problem with X and Y, I need to own up and ask that person to tell me what the problem is. So I'm telling you facts. I'm being emotional, but I'm telling you facts because this is affecting my personal career and it's also affecting my personal life. Because individuals in this basketball circles have chosen to single me out as being a perpetrator of corruption, amongst other things. So let me go back and explain these financial statements.
Maybe
You
just
guys,
to interject, Mr.
please,
Palamani, I don't know, we must have a constructive discussion. I note that a number of these questions, fall on your table, but to have a mutually beneficial and respectful interaction, you must also be able to hear the other side, or if it is even possible. But I note that obviously you sound a bit agitated or upset, but take heed. A number of points have been raised here, and I think it's on record that we have said that you presenting the reports as they are, where you have not committed a crime. Nobody has suggested that, because then it hinges not only on your profession but on your person, which you can seek legal redress for. But let me address, the issue that you raised. That letter was written sometime in, is it November 2002?
2022.
The letter that was presented, it was in 2002.
That's correct, Otema.
Yes,
That's
so
correct.
that letter is written in 2002. We are now in 2004. So you are saying that we were seeking pro bono services from HBL, I don't know that company, the same company that has a block figure of
10,000.
about 10,000 that is given to ZBA. Now, you drafted a letter on behalf of the General Secretary. Let me declare my interest. I was General Secretary. I've never heard or never even seen another office bearer draft a letter for another office bearer. This is absolutely a bit strange. So I'll state it clearly, sir. No, let me finish. Let me finish. You missed my point. You missed my point.
Okay, gentlemen.
You missed my point.
Gentlemen. First of all, let me come in, gentlemen. Let me come in. I know that there's a lot that we have to discuss, but I'll ask that for the purpose of us having a constructive discussion, we should at least give each other a chance to be able to stress out points and then respond effectively. So what will happen now is I'll allow you, Otema, to just finish quickly.
Okay, let me just finish quickly.
And I'll bring back Mr. Balamani to respond. Okay, so
let me finish.
I think that is very clear.
I'll finish it within I'll finish it within a very few seconds. So then we have it on record.
Finish it up.
Yeah, we have it on record that this letter was written to a firm in 2022, sometime in November. From 2022 November to 2024 February, we're in February right now. We are talking about literally over 28 months, maybe, give or take, that this decision to have pro bono services done for audited accounts. Now, let's say, for instance, that the Sports Council passed a resolution that there's no need for these services. Then why are we still talking about it? Because it would be pretty clear that there's no need for audited accounts. And this is when you started your discussion. You said, I think part of it is lack of knowledge or whatever it is. Certainly, these are the issues that we need to bring. Perhaps maybe the challenge is not on your performance, it's how you are communicating. The affiliates, the basketball lovers out there, they are not attacking you personally, but how are you communicating this information? So if you bring this item, at which fora, if we take all these provincial basketball chairpersons and the affiliates, where are they privileged to this information? Now, a rider to what I'm saying is that when you arrived at realizing that the audited accounts could not be done because of the cost implication, what should have accompanied this letter should have been minutes of the ZBF executive, because it's a decision made collectively. You see what I'm saying? It's a corporate governance issue, my brother. And this is where we are heading to. We need to be able to sit as ZBF. This is why people are elected. Even if the decision is coming from my good brother, a competent accountant like yourself. So what should happen is the executive should have sat and did that. Remember, the directive was given by the president for audited accounts to have been done within 3 months of the AGM. So from that
Okay,
time
so Otema,
to
allow me now.
2024, yeah.
Allow me now to just bring in Tony so that he can also
Okay.
respond to what you've said before he gets lost in, much of what you are saying. So Tony, the floor is over to you.
No, we can't get lost with Otema. You know, Otema is like a Whitney Houston. You have to listen until you get the
Yeah.
song.
Uh-huh.
So let me clarify one thing. The directive did not come from the president. The directive is constitutional. And if you've been following, even our AGM agenda is constitutional. So this constitutional issue, now that I'll pack aside. Okay, it is a constitutional issue. I agree with you when you say, how have we communicated this issue to? And which is why I also question that, why don't we have PBA representatives forums to debate these issues? Another question I put aside, because I think when we talk about communication between ZBF and who are the affiliates of ZBF, and not these kangaroo coaches we have, ZBF and the PBAs. And I ask, why aren't these PBA representatives on these forums to ask these questions? Because these questions have been asked in official forums. Whether communication has not trickled down, yeah, I would say communication. That I'll give it to you guys. I'll give it to you 100%. Let me touch on one other aspect. You said, why is HOB appearing on our statement of income as giving us funds as federation? Remember, attempted to send a team to Tunisia in the form of an under-16 team to play qualifiers in Tunisia. Part of the thing we did during that time as federation is to source for funds. And part of the people that responded to our call for source of funds was AB. And I can tell you for a certain that 10,000 that you saw was a contribution towards purpose. And that is how HOB ended up as a funder of our activities. We say, why has it taken so long? We wrote a letter in 2022 November to audit what? 2023. So it hasn't taken so long. It has only taken 12 months because we wrote a letter in 2020 in the period that we were requesting for audit was 2023. So we shouldn't mistake it that for us to get a response from HOB. No, gentlemen, and everyone listening, we wrote the letter in November to HOB, and the period was for 2023. I hope that let that stick to everyone else who's listening.
But were the books audited in 2022?
Sorry, moderator.
Okay. So, Otema, before I allow you to come in again, Otema, let me just quickly allow Tony also just to finish his submission quickly, so that Jabu can come in as well and be able to chip in. So, Tony, you are still on the floor. Just quickly, try as much as you can to explain.
Yeah, no, I will. So let's not forget where we are coming from. Let's not forget where we're coming from, gentlemen. We're coming from an era where financial reports were never presented in an AGM. You attended so many AGMs, Otema, where nothing was presented. Number two is, when was this new constitution that requires us to have audited accounts officially adopted? This was done in Kitwe. Gentlemen, it was done in Kitwe as we transitioned from the leadership of Mr. Fawaz into Maziko Piri. It has not been more than 2 years since that happened. This is the second AGM. I repeat, this is the second AGM. And remember, we had gaps in the way the calendar ran. The AGM that transitioned leadership from Mr. Fawaz to Maziko Piri happened mid-year, almost past mid-year. So we have not been sitting on this for 4 or 5 years, and people should not mistake that. Let's be factual when we speak about these time periods. It has only been 2 years that we've been running under the new constitution. Only 2 years that we've been running under the new constitution of the ZBF. And please let that stick. Thank you.
Okay, so Jabu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the treasurer for coming on board, because this is the sort of interaction we're looking for on this program, where the relevant officers are coming in to answer the tough questions, and if I can borrow a word from the treasurer himself, educating us on issues that we are ignorant over. So if I may point out, of course, the tech guy in me who deals with fraud and the like wants to know that screenshot you showed us, that letter, when was it actually sent? If you could show us the date on the actual email and not on a PDF or a screenshot of an image that can be doctored. Sorry to take you back there. Then just like Mr. Musukwa said, I really don't think this is a personal attack on you as in your personal capacity, and it's not an attack in any way, because if we're going to be emotional about this, then these are just normal questions that should arise targeted at your office. So basically, I understand that in our professional capacity, there's going to be tough questions, and you are providing what would seemingly be pro bono services to the federation. If it gets a bit too hot in the kitchen, then maybe get out of the kitchen. Sorry to say, but these are questions you should expect even next year. We're going to ask. You received 10,000 from HLB. What was it for? What purpose? Was it just free? Those are some of the things we should see in the report. You received HLB support because it was going towards the Tunisia trip. That's just reporting. My next question was on the audit fees. You mentioned something like 150,000 for the organization you work for. And I believe this is a much, much bigger organization than the Zambia Basketball Federation. This report is tiny. It's very, very small compared to other financial reports we've seen. And a figure like 150,000 should obviously factor in the time spent by the accountants, the auditors, looking at the books. Also, let's look at maybe things like the turnover, how much money has been made by the federation. We're talking about very small figures in the grand scheme of things. So even that, I believe, should be factored in when you're conducting an audit. I don't think anyone is going to spend a month looking at ZBF books. So if you can just educate us on these costs, we can extrapolate even from incomplete data that if an organization like yours is spending 150,000 on an audit, ZBF should spend something like 15,000. Looking at the figures, looking at the amount of time it would take. So unless there's a minimum fee that is required that we're not aware of, then you can educate us, just like I said. But I think this is a question that anyone is going to ask. Then
Okay.
The other thing you mentioned over the PBAs and providing books, I think this is a very valid point coming from you. This is actually very, very valid, because take a look at our PBA, for example, in Southern Province, completely unstructured. How are we going to get a financial report from a PBA when there is no treasurer, there is no finance team, there isn't anyone handling money? Basically, we're a one-man show. So it all boils down to, how has the federation been okay with not receiving any such reports from this region? I submit for your action, Treasurer.
Okay.
Okay, Tony. So Otema, before you come in, I think
Yes.
let me allow Tony just to respond to what
To
Jabu has
answer.
raised
Okay.
so that we don't put so much on his plate.
Let's play. That's true. That's all right.
Yeah, thanks, team.
So just
Sorry. Let me just mute my mic there. All right, I'm using two devices because one of my devices is about to like. I appreciate your contribution, Jabu, and this one. Did we doctor the letter? Letter was dated 22. It's dated 22, and it was sent as has been shown or displayed on the screen. Obviously, I will not share the email that was sent due to data privacy issues, but if people believe to agree to what I'm saying, well and good, that is up to them. Unfortunately, there's also certain ethical things that I cannot do and share on social media. Also, HLB is a renowned audit firm. We do not want to bring them into our mess, for lack of a better term. With regards to PBAs, there is a lot. And look, that's why I'm saying if you are well-meaning and you're looking at the audit report, the Federation only received 3,500 from transfer fees. Some of you are affiliated to clubs. Ask yourselves, how many transfers did you do in the last year? And how much did you actually pay to the Federation? The Federation received 0 affiliation fees because as a federation, we decided to waive affiliation fees from provincial basketball associations to aid basketball development. That is all income that we could have earned, but we chose to forego. So we should look at it. If we really want to help the federation, as we claim, can we also look at areas where we should be helping the federation and we have not helped the federation to develop? Just like any other federation in this country, no one plays sport for free without making an affiliation. You guys are leaders in your provincial associations. Ask yourselves, when was the last time you ever affiliated to this federation? When was the last time you ever paid, even apart from your competition fees, which are mandatory in every place that you play? When was the last time that was ever done? Without even looking at, just look at yourselves before you even point a finger at others. So I appreciate that. My assurance to you, Jabu, is that we did not doctor. That letter is as authentic as it is, and I would probably be crucified for sharing it by the team because I'm here without even informing them. But yeah, that is the position. Thank you.
before I allow Otema to come in, what I wanted to find out is just a rider to Jabu's question concerning the fees. You gave an example of the school where your daughter goes, of which their charge is 150,000, and the letter was asking for pro bono services. Now, within basketball community, I believe there's an array of expertise that we can take advantage of. So what I wanted to know is, did at any point your office and the entire team entertain or consider a thought of perhaps extending this gesture to identified individuals within our fraternity that can offer this service at a much cheaper rate, but produce credible results, because we know these individuals are competent and they have the experience to do the job?
Thanks. I think in the previous AGM where the motion, so we remember we had an AGM before where we passed a motion to adopt. We proposed HLB as proposed auditors for the AGM. Questions were asked by those in attendance, your affiliates and your representatives. The first question was, who are these people? That's number one. Okay. And the second question was, do we have people outside who we can think of? And as a federation, we said, if there are people that you feel can do this service for us, please advance those names to us and we will contact them. And remember, the Zambia Association for Chartered Accountants, ZICA, is the regulator for accounting in Zambia, has a list of people who are approved to be auditors. So you may be a qualified accountant, you may be a qualified auditor, but as a firm, do you have that certification as an approved auditor where you can pass accounts to pass as official accounts for an institution? So all those things were considered before making the step to select HLB. We realized our financial position was weak. As a federation, we also realized that we did have a relationship with HLB. And because of that, that was the first thought to contact HLB to do that. Thank you.
Just before I bring in Otema, you talked about the affiliation fee, and obviously Iliam Denge here sympathizes with the position that you presented. But what I wanted to find out, did the waiver extend to teams within Midlands that say may have the capacity to pay the affiliation fee as opposed to teams that say maybe will be in Mansa or somewhere further, you know, in the outskirts of this country? Was that waiver extended to teams in Lusaka that have the capacity to be able to pay the affiliation fee? And another thing I heard is that because of the debt that the federation owes to some teams would bargain with you and say, okay, we will not pay certain fees and things like that. Is this something that perhaps the federation also has been contending with? But hold that thought, Mr. Balamani. Just allow me to bring in Otema to just quickly ask his question, and then you can combine the answers with the clarification that I seek. Otema, the floor is yours. Remember to keep it brief so that we could give chance to Mr. Balamani to clarify a number of these issues. So, Otema, are you able to hear me? Okay, so we seem to have audio challenges with... Okay, he's back. Are you able to hear me now?
You know what I wanted to do? I was actually looking at the provisions of the Constitution, and I looked at what is provided for in the Constitution. Now, I read there are two clauses that speak about what the subheading refers to the word auditor. I think it's Article 25, 26, somewhere there. Unless one of the colleagues has it, they can beam it, and then I can explain what that means. So in those two clauses, what is explicitly mentioned there is that the appointment of the auditor is done by the council. So it is at the AGM that the council then appoints the auditor. But how is this done? It is done in this manner. I mean, this, from where I'm coming from, the way it was done is there were a number of audit firms brought. And then from there, their fees were well known. This was a task that was given to the GS and the treasurer to bring these audits. Oh, we have 6 audit firms. This one is offering 30,000 kwacha as audit fees. This is 25. This is a smaller one. It's offering 15 or 8, whatever it is. So there were different fees. It's like almost like a procurement process. So at that point, when the council had agreed on the auditor, that was the auditor that we would have gone for. I think in the transition to the Fawaz, before the Fawaz team to the Musukwa team, it has been missed in translation. But quite clearly, the provisions in the current ZBF constitution does not provide for the executive to decide on the auditors. So that is a breach. If it was done, then that was breached. And then we can debate whether the breach is severe or whatever it is, but that was a breach. So let us get it on firm ground that when you had the 2022 AGM, it was apparent that what you should have done is you should have followed the same constitution that created the rules that you are referring to say, the appointment of that auditor should have been done by the council. And which is the council? I know that there was mention of the Provincial Basketball Association should be there. The same constitution provide for what constitutes the council, the board. And part of that is the PBA chairpersons. Mr. Balamani, you are part of this board that is currently existing. Why is it apparent that the chairpersons of the provincial basketball associations are not part of the board? I ask that question because then would this knowledge communication would have already been dealt with. If we follow the same constitution that gives us authority, would not literally have this problem. This is why in the beginning I said this is more of an administrative issue. Had it been done that way, would not have these challenges. We need to forget the hats we put on when we are not in basketball. When we are out there, it's a different hat. But when we are in basketball, let the constitution guide. It's barely 2 years, but your administration, according to what I'm reading here, has breached the constitution. Now, you did mention another point. You said in the past there were no audited books of accounts. I'm on record, and anyone can go to Sports Council. 3 whole years we provided books of account. I resigned in that year. Mafleka resigned. Kambi resigned. We left before the fourth term when we were supposed to end. We ended there. It's there, and we are one of the only 4 associations. I am told that Mr. Fawaz's executive had at least some audited accounts. So we are not coming from we are not reinventing the wheel. We're just refining the process. So it was not a correct position that you painted, that there were no, in the past, there were no audited accounts. There were, sir. And the way it was done is that the affiliates in that time, when ZBA was an association, not a federation, the appointment of the auditor was done at that time. So that is where we need to start from. That glaring mistake that your executive made is why we are talking about these issues, sir. Simple and straightforward.
Okay, so let me allow Tony now, Mr. Balamani, just to be able to respond to some of those issues that have been raised.
Yeah, thanks for Otema, and it's good when you have a knowledge basket around. It helps ease the things. I will still stand by what I previously said. Audited accounts, maybe, but you did provide financial reports, which we have as an administration continued to provide. So there we have continuity. Number 2, the issue surrounding the constitution. And this is why people like you and any other well-meaning people should delve into the constitution. There are people who are maybe listening in. I have mentioned to them time and again that read this constitution and see what your input is, because I think the efforts that we put into making some of these allegations, if they were channeled to actually understanding what the constitution says, we would then understand where we need to focus our energies on. I personally, away from my position as national treasurer, may have issues with the current constitution that was adopted, and some things I don't agree, because I think they don't progress basketball in the Zambian state as it is. But that is a discussion away from this. So I do agree with you, Otema, around the ambiguity on the constitution. And also, just to clarify, maybe the minutes might not have been read from the previous AGM. HLB was not adopted in the 2022 AGM. HLB was proposed, and from the people in attendance in the AGM, it was proposed that they would need more information around HLB, which through the secretariat, that information was to be provided to them before they could settle on HLB as official auditors of the federation. And that was the position minuted in that AGM. So even as we were going into 2023, the position was as it is. We took a step further as federation to try and quicken the process, and hence we engaged HLB to give us that service on pro bono services. But as that meeting concluded, yes, Otema, I agree with you. it was as it is. The affiliates in the meeting did not endorse HOB 100%. They requested for further details. Thank you.
So sorry, Wilson. Let me just add something. Can I add something just now?
He may have dropped off.
Oh, he may have dropped off. Let me just add here that the rationale behind having the affiliates or the council pick the auditor, it was an issue to deal with conflict of interest and vested interest. Because what was perceived in previously was that if we then brought an auditor to audit our books after, it would mean that you could actually ask a professional colleague to say, oh, can you bid so that we give you this what? So the same issues of conflict of interest and vested interest come in. So this is why when we bring an auditor, it should be someone that is agreeable to the general affiliate, so that when any query is raised, if you wrote to them to say, this is what we want you to do for us, you are backed by a decision that is unanimously brought together. Because the general, the way persons in leadership sometimes behave, sir, is that you find that sometimes people would not want to answer questions and they'll just say, no, ask Mlemwa. Mlemwa is the one who knows. Balamani is the one who did this. And this is unfortunate, and it's time consuming, and it distorts the purpose of why we do what we do. I understand your challenge, but I think you are in leadership, so this is one of the many headaches that you get as you lead us.
Yeah, no, thanks, Otema. And
Okay, go ahead, Tony. Go ahead.
Yeah. So to your point. Sorry, let me just mute one of my devices. I'm getting some echo. Not sure why. All right. I hope that's fine.
Just before you come in, Tony, Otema, please remember to mute your microphone, since we have a bit of, or rather a number of active microphones. So just mute it after you talk so that we could hear Tony clearly. So Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Tim. So to your point, I do not disagree, and I could not 100% agree. I agree more than you 100% on this issue around why should we have an audited account. I mean, the basic rules of governance dictate that any maker checker process you have within any process, you have to be able to demonstrate independence. If I'm giving you a number, okay, you should be able to say this number is independent, it's been verified by party XYZ. And that is the way it works in the world. There is nowhere in the world where you would take a number without being verified. So I agree 100% on the governance principles that require us to have audited accounts. I would not agree more than anything else. In the absence of those audited accounts, I think the question is, which you guys were talking about even before I joined the call, is explaining why do we see 103,000? Why do we see 104,000? And I think the people who attended the AGM, and sometimes I question the integrity of people around us, because when I tell Otema that 1 + 1 is equal to 2, and Jabu asks Otema, what is 1 + 1? I don't expect Otema to say, go and ask Mulenga. I don't know. Because I clearly explained in the AGM, people have been crying about gate takings. I said, put me on record. And I told them to write down the figure. I said, gate takings have been 89,550 for this 4 weeks that we've run championships. I don't know why people have not told you that has been the gate takings from the games. I told them medical expenses have amounted to so much. I don't know why people have not come out and told people that this is what we were told in the AGM. I have told them that 80% of that 100,000 you are seen as an expense went to officials. Officials who were being paid, transported to Chipata, transported to Copperbelt, accommodated in Copperbelt, paid lunch, paid transport for officiating games, are still quiet that they did not benefit from the national championships. So really, I don't know what is the problem with us as Zambians. What is it that we want to do? Do we want to move basketball forward, or we just want to bring us down?
Sorry to interject, Tony. I like that point that you brought up there on transportation of officials and payment of officials. So if I may ask, I think I brought this up in my earlier question. This is supposed to be a detailed report. Why are those things not included in the report? I think it should have a breakdown. You saw the basketball for good section of the same report that you are discussing right now, and it's very well detailed. I assume that was done by a different individual. I don't know if that was done by you or if that was done by the person in charge of basketball for good. So I think that's a glaring difference in the presentation of the report, in that there is serious detail in some sections and then very vague details in other sections. One can only make assumptions after looking at that aspect of the report. So that's number one.
Yeah, thanks.
Number two, sorry,
thanks,
let me just
Jabu.
finish. We're running out of time. Sorry. Let me just finish. Yeah. The other one is, I've noticed something about a 6,300 kwacha owed to a white line from as far back as 2017, and we've had income for quite some time. Why has this not been addressed? How do we have a debt on our books? And I say our books because I mean we are all stakeholders of this federation, on our books for over for just shy of a decade, you know. Can that be pointed out? Then the other one is the issue of no affiliation from PBAs. It doesn't make sense to me that PBAs should not pay affiliation. If you ask the Livingston, the unrecognized Livingston Basketball Association today to affiliate, we would come up with the funds for affiliation. I don't think this is something that we should just look back on and say, no, PBAs don't pay affiliation. Let's point them out. Why are they not paying affiliation? Because honestly, if the affiliation fee is not paid, then they shouldn't compete. How do you expect to gain prize money when you don't pay an affiliation fee? Affiliation fees exist everywhere in every single sport in the world. I mean, for you to compete, you should be organized, and one of the prerequisites should be an affiliation fee. How is the federation going to work without affiliation? So if you could touch on those few issues. And I do understand that some of these things are not exactly tied to you or your office, but I think the other two, aside from the affiliation from the PBAs, can be answered by you. The 6,300 to White Line, and then the lack of details in the report. I submit.
Okay, Tony, over to you, Tony.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, Jabu. So the quick one, White Line, we've owed White Line for a couple of years now. Why we haven't done that is simple. We haven't had operating capital as a federation. Most of our income is grant income, and grant income expense is dictated in what is the word? Sorry, forgive my pronunciation. We have dictation around how we can spend grant income, because if it's sent for a FIBA program, we have to spend it under a FIBA program. Once in a while, we do get operational income in terms of our premier competition, national championships. Again, the expenses offset, but it's something we keep on the books because we know it's something we need to pay, and it's something we commit to pay in the coming financial year. Details around expenses of the national championships, I'll tell you for a fact. Then the expenses are detailed. I have 137 lines of expenses for a national championships on a given day. And this is in the detailed report which was provided to the national executive even before the financial report was issued to go through. On a given day, my expense lines just by detail exceed about 10 lines, because I have to put in issues of local expenses. I have to put in issues. There's so many issues, referees expenses, venue expenses. So it's for the purpose of making a report, and those who are in financial reporting, for a purpose of making a report presentable, those people will understand that we cannot have the nitty-gritties in this report. Why did we have the basketball for good budget there? Because it was a very simple report. It's a one pager. You've seen the budget lines are there. We've expensed 28,000 kwacha, and that's how it's been spent. With the national championships, these things are entered line by line, line by line. And all I can do is, in the interest, if we are being audited, all I can do is provide these detailed expenses to reconcile to the main report. And that is how it works in financial accounting. There are certain details that we call a trial balance. And those who have done a bit of financial accounting, you realize that your trial balance is very detailed, because it's an everyday item. But all I can do is categorize the expenses, and which is what I try and summarize. And that is why you find that in the financial report, you'll find that your expenses have been categorized. So when someone asks me what makes up administration costs, I'm able to go back to our detailed trial balance and then verify that this is what makes up this figure in under administration, or this is what makes up ABCD. But to list everything under that particular item, the national championship, is very tedious. And this is something that I've learned, because if you remember, the first financial report I ever provided under Shawi was done at OIDC, and I had a 22 leaflet pamphlet. Those people that were there, I had it there, 22 leaflet detailing everything. 200 kwacha paid for fuel, number plate BAF 6249, and a seasoned accountant referred to me and told me good practice is that you need to group your expenses. And I'm glad that there's an accountant listening in by the name of Harry Chancer, and he can probably attest to what I'm saying, because that is how we do it. So it's not that we are hiding when we say 120,000. No, you must trust that your executive members should be able to question the 120,000, and that detailed should be given to them. Unless your executive members are telling you that they don't trust those numbers, then it's a different conversation. And if they are telling you that they don't trust those numbers, they should be able to communicate to the general secretary, to the president, and say, boss, your report done by the treasurer, we don't trust it. But I can say, hand on heart, today, I have not gotten any such report. And if I have, maybe my president or my GS is being deceitful and keeping that information to themselves. So that is the way it works with our numbers. So I just thought I would make that clear. But like I said, if you guys wanted to understand the detail behind the number, that we will gladly show, and which is something that I definitely demonstrated in the AGM also to the affiliates that attended the AGM, and they were able to understand those details. Thank you.
Okay, so due to the interest of time, I know we can go on and on, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that, there are so many things that we need to attend to apart from having this important conversation. And I know that, Mr. Baramani, you have quite a lot on your plate, but we thank you for equally coming through. So we should be wrapping up very soon. But however, I would like to get a commitment from you. You said you have a detailed presentation that can be made to make people understand the expenditure. So for the purposes of avoiding speculation, as Jabu had stated earlier on, can we accord you an opportunity to come through and be able to clarify on some of those expenditure lines? Before I ask the question, I would like to get a response from you on that.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Look, I think as as a federation, we are guided by rules on how we disclose information, and I think that is no secret. If there is anyone from any public provincial administration, the channels are there. Please write to the General Secretary of the Zambia Basketball Federation, or write to your General Secretary, and they will then in turn get the details through the General Secretary of the provincial administration. These figures are there in the public. I can't hide these things. They are there. I will not go on social media because some things will be taken out of context. But 100%, as long as a formal request is sent through the provincial administration, they will get these reports. Like I said, you have adequate leaders, and it was demonstrated in the past AGM. Even as I presented this report, it was not presented on mute lips. We had questions from the Coaches Association. We had questions from Midlands Basketball Associations. These guys are learned people. They were able to ask, and they needed clarity before they could even say anything else. So it's not a secret. Just communicate and you will get the right answers. That's all I can say. Thanks, Wetson. Not sure you're still there.
Sorry. Yeah, so I'm still here. So just allow me to bring in Jabu real quickly before I give the floor to Otema.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick one on the national championships. Everyone's eyes are on the national championships. Was the prize money paid to the teams that won the national championships, both male and female? I noticed in the reports there's some monies that are owed. But again, it comes back to my initial question of, we know that there's going to be these debts. Do we not budget in advance for things like prize money? Why don't we automatically put these funds aside if there's going to be a prize money at the end of it all? Why not budget for it in advance? And quite rightly, you mentioned there are challenges. You get grants, and the sources of income are not necessarily your own. But all in all, if there's going to be such an excursion taking place, wouldn't it be better to set this money aside, just like this very paltry 6,300 that can be paid for from someone's pocket? I mean, why not budget for this in advance? That's my question. I submit.
As you take that particular
Jabu, are
question,
you
Mr.
pledging
Balamani,
to pay that 6,000?
No, I'm not pledging to pay 6,300 kwacha, because very soon I'll have to pay affiliation fees towards national championships if my province is gotten into the federation. I submit.
Okay, so Mr. Balamani, you can go ahead and
that's
respond
me
to that.
budgeting well in advance for something that has not occurred yet, but I know will occur.
Okay, but also I think Harry is asking, is saying, he's commending the approach from the federation of waiving the affiliation fee, but at the same time he would like to know if the federation, like, what is the source of income? I know you spoke about the grants, and is there any other apart from what you mentioned earlier on, for the sake of Harry, who would like to explicitly know that?
Yeah, so I think sometimes we have to take the soup hot or cold, and it's not a good practice to waive affiliation fees in any institution, industry that you are running. And I think there were certain considerations made on the table, and a decision was made to waive the federation, the affiliation fees. And I think going forward, we'll try and ensure that we collect affiliation fees in order to support basketball effectively. In terms of other sources of income from the federation, I think that we did have with the team a morning session on last week Saturday, where we did highlight a few things that we could do better in terms of income sourcing, and we'll try and see those to actualize. So yes, definitely we are looking to other sources of income.
Okay, so before I bring on Otema, there is something in my inbox, Tony, that perhaps merits your attention. And this talks about the financials that were presented, or this document that is circulating, apparently to be off balance. So this is something that I would like to get your mind on. And this is coming from somebody who is within your domain of finance. So they're saying the statement on the financial position is off balance, okay, because the financials they're in are not balanced. So perhaps this is something that may be for the sake of somebody that may be exposed to this kind of perception towards the report. So Otema, just kindly.
Sorry.
Okay, Otema.
Interference on my side.
Yeah, just kindly mute your microphone, Otema. Thank you very much. Okay, so Tony, you can go ahead.
So look, like I said, I'm not going to argue with their position. If there is an off-balance position that may have been an oversight on our part, it's easier to talk about it, and I think that's my only advice to anyone in basketball. We are not closed people. We only learn from each other. We build each other better. So if there is a position that in their view has not been correctly stated, the best that we can do is actually to point it out and come forward, and not to be in your inbox per se, but they better be in my inbox if they are well-meaning and tell me that, dude, from my experience, this is not what it's supposed to be. And I think then we make progress. If there's anything we are hiding, then definitely it's going to come out. But I can tell, hand on heart, they have got nothing to hide, but everything to learn. So if people have an opinion of something that hasn't gone right, please reach out, either through the general secretary, through the president, or directly to myself. And we will be able to clarify and make corrections where we need to make corrections. Thank you.
Okay, so Otema talked about something to do with the issue of conflict of interest and everything. And again, like I always say, I mean, you've been on this platform before, Mr. Balamani, and you know that the reason why we also have these engagements is to make sure that whatever speculation or question that people have out there that may warrant clarification for the sake of unison and moving together in one direction for the sake of developing basketball, we address it. So the issue of the auditors that were appointed, HLB, I'm getting intimation that they are somehow can be linked to the president, Mr. Maziko Piri. Is there anything sinister about the convenient, if I may use that word, consideration of HLB only?
Yeah, thanks. So two things. I don't think they are linked to Maziko Piri, because I don't know that they are linked to Maziko Piri. Is there anything sinister about them? I think HLB has been around basketball, if I'm not mistaken, and those who've been around long enough know that they have been. So for me, it's an issue of working with what's available, and that's where the recommendations come from, and that's all I can say about HLB.
Okay. So let me allow Otema now to be able to just make his submission and perhaps his concluding remarks, so that we can get to wrap up the show. As usual, I don't want to take advantage of your presence here by keeping you longer than necessary. we can always request you to come back and educate us and furnish us with more information on the questions that we have. So, Otema, over to you.
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, I must appreciate the magnanimous approach by Mr. Balamani. Mulema has always been cordial, even though he was hot a few minutes ago. But I think we have eased into a discussion that is productive on both ends. He's always our brother. Uh, we come in peace for the love of basketball. We don't have any reason to suggest that you are not uh, uh, competent and you're not doing a great job. There's so many areas of focus, like I've indicated, even in the previous discussion, that you're doing everything right. However, this is a proviso. Uh, when we address issues, when we raise issues with you, in the same vein that you have come forward to discuss with us, this should be the spirit of mutual respect and also love for the game. So let me summarize my points. Number one, if the basis for audits that are related to the financials are firmly rooted in the Constitution, Article 25, which is the subheading editors, it is very clear in those two clauses what is provided for. There is no ambiguity in that regard. So this is very clear. Then, secondly, if the requirement for a format for an AGM requires a bit more detailed, and you can provide that, it would be best to provide that to the AGM, so that any misapprehension or misinformation is nipped in the bud. My point, you being a board member, a part of the ZBF executive, I'm going to ask you this question so that when you meet with your colleagues, the position that are provided for in the ZBF constitution are not the positions that appear in your report. There are positions that are missing. Why is that so? Because this education, this misinformation to the provincial basketball associations is directly linked to that missing element. Those persons, the chairpersons, they must be part of ZBF. Where was this decision made? Is it a resolution of the council? We as we go into the third year or second year of your office, you must take care to pay very close attention to this new constitution that people wanted, that you mooted. Your executive literally put this across. So my concern is really that we are having a discussion that should bring us closer. And I think going forward, we are hoping that you even come more. And I think next week, when you come and explain a bit more of the operations of the ZBF, we are all going to be on the same page. So I think all those detractors and all those persons that have suggested otherwise, disregard them. Leadership is not a right, it's a privilege. So when you are serving in these offices, know that you are refining the process, not reinventing the wheel. Conflict of interest, if it is apparently clear that HBL or whatever that is connected to Maziko Piri, this is why even from his position, he needs to declare interest. It starts from the head. If there are any suggestions whatsoever, the council should be more powerful than you, the office bearer. That's generally the concept of democracy within an institution like ZBF. The council is more powerful than yourself. So at that point, when we realize that, I think our work would be easier. I submit.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Otema, for that. Jabu, I need to come to you before we close so that you can also just tender in perhaps your final question and then closing remarks. And then Mr. Balamani will wrap it up and close for us.
Thank you, Ensign. Yeah, I think first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Balamani for coming onto the show. I'm sure there's been a lot of unwarranted pressure from outside, but people just wanted answers, and I think this has cleared the air on a few issues, and possibly even left us with a few more questions in other areas. I personally am looking forward to seeing the detailed accounts. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get those through the normal channels, but hopefully they make their way to my desk and I can share with the people in my region. Thank you again, Wenson, for hosting us on the show, and also Mr. Musukwa. Your knowledge, as usual, is just very valuable. It's a wealth of knowledge, and thank you so much for the insight. Yeah, keep this up, Wenson. This is a great initiative.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. Balamani, we'll get to you to just give your closing remarks so that we can be able to call it a night. And perhaps if there's anything that you'd like to take advantage of, most importantly, to be able to on this platform, you are at liberty to do so.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and it's been an eventful 1 week for me. So pardon me and also forgive my forcefulness at times, but it is what it is. Appreciate your comments and your indulgence. Also, the guys listening in and also those that providing their comments. Two things I would like to just sign off before I go. The first is around Otema's remarks, and I think it's very, very important. And I'll say my next few sentiments will be without wearing any hat. I am simply a basketball enthusiast as I say these things. Gentlemen, if we do not read the Constitution, if we do not read these documents that are circulating, we will only have ourselves to blame. Okay. In the next 2 years, you will be voting for a new executive. All right. Your Constitution dictates who votes in those elections. In the current state, if you had an election today, that election away from the members of the national executive would only have 3 votes. That is the vote of the Midlands Basketball Association, the vote of the the Coaches Association, and the vote of the Luapula Basketball Association. Let us start to ask the pertinent questions. Is our constitution fit for purpose with regard to the current situation pertaining in our country, Zambia? As long as we keep trying to individualize or personalize happenings of what happens in basketball, we are going to miss the bigger picture. And the few of us who fight silently for the bigger picture will not get anywhere. There's a lot of things that we can do better from an administrative point. I always accept where the federation, my team and I have not done our best, but also from where we come from as constituents in basketball, as clubs, as provincial basketball associations, let us start to challenge what should be the status quo of basketball. There's a guy in Southern Province who's never met me, who has an opinion about me. But guess what? I'm not going to be here for so long. There's a guy in Eastern Province who has an opinion about me. So what? But as long as we start to build the right fundamentals, not only around player development, but also administrative fundamentals, only then can we then start to see a basketball that we want to play. These elections are coming in 2026. Who's going to be the next president? Who's going to be the next GS? Who's going to be the next treasurer? You guys, we need to start thinking about continuity. And when I say continuity, I mean progressive continuity. Okay, we don't want ex-basketball members to be enemies of the current regime. It doesn't take us anywhere. We are a growing federation, a small federation. We are popular. That's the only strength that we have. But we need to stand together. And as long as we don't do that, we don't get anywhere. We go 10 years backwards with what we're driving. So please, I appeal to you. If you are well-meaning and you really want to drive basketball, whether you are a coach, you are a player, you are a manager, you are a fan, let's be objective in the way we criticize. Let's be objective in the way we look at things. And let's offer progressive or positive criticism. The moment we start putting ourselves out there, contribution as well. Most of us, we don't contribute anything to basketball apart from maybe negative criticism. That doesn't help us go anywhere. So for me, it's an open door. If you need any clarity around the financial report, I'm bound to only give you information if the concern comes through the right channels. Challenge your leaders in your provinces to ask the right questions of the federation. The moment they do, because we know the moment we don't answer the provincial chairman of Eastern Province, we are in trouble. The moment we don't answer the provincial chairman of Southern Province, we're in trouble. Those are the people that need to speak on your behalf, and you need to speak these conversations within your forums, and so that you can come out as a voice, and together we can drive basketball. And that's my concluding remarks. Thanks.
Okay, interesting conversations that we've had, gentlemen and ladies. Those of you following us on our Facebook page, YouTube, and Twitter as well, where this conversation is currently being streamed live. And as I always indicate, I will not take much time because today we've really gone beyond the time that was supposed to end the show. But it was for one specific purpose, and that is to ensure that we have meaningful and constructive conversation with regards a very important document pertaining to the governance of basketball in this country, and that is the financial report. My guests have been Mr. Otema Musukwa, veteran basketball administration, providing an array of knowledge, wisdom, and of course, experience with regards basketball governance. And the gentleman, a very good friend of mine, Jabu, coming through all the way from Southern Province, continuing to advocate for what is more important in that province, which is the resumption of basketball. And when we talk about the resumption of basketball, we're talking about orderly basketball governed by recognized leadership from the federation. And of course, just weighing in on the report as well, being able to give a fresh perspective away from the Midlands Association, which is Lusaka, where of course most of the people that I interact with on this particular platform come from. And to Mr. Balamani, I mean, without any reservation, I'll still reiterate my statement that you always show leadership when we need it, when we demand of it, when we expect to see it. You always show leadership. You and Mr. Roderick Ndlovu, I know that we, we'll argue, we'll debate, we'll do everything, but each time there's a call for you to step up as a leader, come through and be able to provide that guidance that is required. You always do that. And for me, the thing that I always want to, not to flatter you, but just to be very honest, and I'm saying it publicly, the thing that I like is the fact that even where you feel you need to be corrected, you are not shy to simply state it. And this is something that I believe makes for meaningful conversation, for proper dialogue that you were calling for in your closing remarks. If people feel that the leaders are not there to listen, but to be listened to, then what's the whole point of conversation? But every time we've brought you here, you've demonstrated that you're willing to listen, to be honest. Where you are not doing okay, you at least mention that here we need to improve. This is something that we appreciate. So to the entire federation of ZBF, I think they can take a leaf from you, because this platform we've created not out of malice, but to end this whole thing that is plaguing basketball governance in this country, where we can't talk to each other, but we want to be talking in corridors. We want to be talking in platforms where we're just talking to ourselves, or there's no solution, where it is mere gossip. So this is basically why we have these candid conversations. This is basically why we extend an opportunity also to people that may be deep in Wapula province and are interested in basketball, but don't know who Tony or who Mr. Balamani, who Roderick is, who Sankey is. And we give them this chance to be able to interact with you, interface with you firsthand, and learn what they can with regards even the plans that you have for them as an executive. So, Mr. Balamani, thank you very much. And to the entire panel that was with me this evening, thank you very much. So next week, Mr. Balamani, we're looking forward to having you again for part 2, so that we can put this thing to bed and move on. Whoever will come through after next week, they'll be talking to themselves, because a platform has been created. Today you were here to answer questions. You did not run away. In fact, I did not coerce you to come, in case people think I was busy texting you. I did interact with you beforehand. You had other commitments. You had to really squeeze your time just to be here and be able to respond to all these things. For me, that is commitment. So after next week, when we do the part 2, whoever has good questions, anyway, they'll be able to take heed, I think, to the advice that you gave. They can use other channels. But as it is, we will do our part together with your responsive leadership to create a platform where you can reach out to the millions of Zambians that are interested in basketball, both within and abroad. From me, Wenson Mavoro, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your evening. See you next week. Remember, let's keep the conversation going, not in a negative and distractive way, but in a positive, building, constructive way. You can be honest without really disrespecting anybody. You can disagree with a person without attacking their persona. So enjoy yourselves the rest of the evening.